A good day to everybody. Today we're going to continue our discussion of Herzl and go on from there. First of all, I wanted to try something slightly new, which is because there are all sorts of spelling issues. Let me tell you some index cards to show you how to spell. For example, Herzl. That's Herzl. And his first name was Theodore, spelled normally without an E at the end. Theodore Herzl, but you can spell with an E too. And we mentioned Herzl last time we spoke. And I want to start off with a question, which is a basic theological question. Theology. Let's write down that word. That's a good word to know. Theology. Theology needs something to do with religion and religious thought. So there's a basic question in theology. Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do good things through bad people? And this is a tremendous source of a debate to this day from the time of Herzl. Herzl was not a Shomer Shabbos Jew. His kids all became converted to Christianity. He himself was, as I said, was not observant in any way, and yet he had a tremendous vision for the Jewish people. And something I mentioned in the last video, which evidently was not fully understood, was that he was the first person really to lead a movement. Of course, there are other people in the Zionist movement, but he was the first person to come out and be able to say that Ivri Anochi, I have a unique status. I'm a Jew, and that is my primary status. And I deserve to have my own independent state, just like any other nationality. That's something which, till then, no Jews had said throughout the entire Golus, at least in public. In their Batei Medrash, as the Rabbi Avraham Meli Kaplan says, they're able to say it. In their Batei Knesios, they're able to say it, but they were not able to say it in public. So this question I want you to write down, and I want you to give your own personal answer, please, which is, do you believe that God can do things through bad people? I'm sorry, God can do good things through bad people. And this is something which, again, as I said, is an issue to this day. For example, many Orthodox Jews, many people believe that it's not possible that God would do something good through bad people. And therefore, if Herzl was not Shomer Shabbos, if his kids all became Christian, so then somebody committed suicide, became Christian, so we can't accept something which was done through them as being something good and positive. Whereas the other Orthodox Jews will say, no, Hashem works in strange ways, but we see that Hashem has done something positive through this person. How we can understand that is a good question. Perhaps we have to understand that even people who are non-religious in the Jewish world have a role to play, like the Rambam says about Christianity and Islam. The Rambam says that even though Christianity and Islam, Rambam Hilchos Melachim, was actually censored out of most of the editions of the Rambam until recently. Even though Christianity and Islam seem to go against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're actually part of the master plan, because they are paving the way for the understanding of the Jewish perspective on Torah and on Hashem throughout the world, because both of them are religions which have taken elements of Judaism and changed them, distorted them, but have introduced them to masses around the globe. And there's a recent clip from the Pope, which the Pope, and this comes out, Pope Francis, the current Pope, says that the Christians should emulate the Jewish Shabbos and consider that model of a day of desisting from all types of involvement in this world and its technology. And that would be an example of how Christianity paves the way to eventual Yakir Veidu Kodesh Veisevel, that everybody in the world will realize that there is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the God, and Torah was given by him to the world, to the Jewish people, in order to better the world, in order to provide direction. So that's the question, whether Herzl and later Zionist leaders who were not religious can be seen as having accomplished something good, or no good can come from people who are not of impeccable character. Impeccable means beyond any sort of question. So I'd like you to write down your own opinion about this. It's just opinion, I know, but I'd like you to write it down and share it with me. So let's get back to Herzl and the Zionist movement. So Herzl organized the Zionist movement together with others. He was not alone, but we're not going to deal with other people in a moment. Herzl dealt with had the Zionist movement meet in congresses. The most famous congress was the Second World Zionist Congress in Basel, and in the late 1800s, in which the Zionist movement came out with its manifesto. Let's spell that word for you, because it is an important word. Manifesto. That's an M at the beginning. Sorry if it's not clear. Manifesto means its platform, what it represented. And this, of course, it was about the Jews returning to the national home in what was then part of the Ottoman Empire, part of Turkey, Palestine. And there was a time when Herzl, as is well known, advocated, because you need a national home, but not necessarily that national home, that the Zionist Congress accept the offer of Uganda as a national home, which the British were offering him. He was roundly rejected on that. And so the Zionism then, however, adopted a policy, which has caused problems since that time until today, which was that Zionism has nothing to do with religion. Meaning that for the first time, it was possible to identify as a Jew, which is a good thing, but who has not part of the Jewish religion, which is a bad thing. Because until then, the understanding was like Reb Sadia Gaon said. Please write down this statement. I'm going to write it down for you. It's quoted numerous ways, but this is the way I remember it best. I'm going to write it in Hebrew. And bear in mind that when you take notes, you're not just supposed to take notes on when I tell you to take notes, but in the totality of the video. Uma seinu eina uma ela b'torasa. Our nation is not a nation except with its Torah. Uma seinu eina uma. Let's figure out how to do this backwards. Ela b'torasa. So, according to this, our nation is not a nation except according to Torah. The Torah is our constitution. And the Torah is the basis of our nationality, not just the basis of our religious services, but the basis of our national identity is the Torah. So now there came about an idea of a national identity of Jews independent of Torah. Now, how does this work? Works pretty easily if you are non-observant, by saying that there's a tremendously rich history of culture of Judaism, not necessarily religious service, but of cultural experiences, including the holidays, including intellectual study of Torah, including lots of stuff, but it's cultural, not avodas Hashem. It's our culture. That's one way of separating Judaism from Judaism from being Jewish, so to speak. And the other way is that to say that most nations are nations by virtue of them having a connection to a specific piece of land. In other words, if you take somebody from Poland and put him in America, he might call himself Polish American, but he's really an American at that point. If you take somebody from Russia and move them to South Africa, they might call themselves Russian South Africans, but they're really South African at that point. They identify with the land in which they live. That is what defines their nation. To the extent that they identify with their previous country, that is also a form of identity with a land, with a place. And so nationalism, and that's an important term to remember because it underlies most of the history of the 20th century, that matter, the 19th as well, but right now we're doing the 20th century, nationalism is a form of identity which is based solely on connection to land and place and culture. It doesn't necessarily have to do with any moral right or wrong. It doesn't have necessarily to do with any mission or purpose. It has to do with place, land, and culture. So the Zionist movement said we have a place. Our culture emerged from there. We have a land. the land of Israel. So now we can identify as a nation based on our land without any reference to the Jewish religion. So needless to say, this caused great consternation, great turmoil among Orthodox Jews. What are we supposed to do? Or this movement, which seems to be doing something very positive for the Jewish people, has just denied its connection to Judaism. So there became two great positions which exist to this day as to how to deal with this issue of Zionism divorcing itself from Judaism. And they are called by convenient names, which really are meaningless. And one of them is the Mizrahi. Mem Zion Resh Ches Yud. Now, Mizrahi in itself means eastwards, meaning turning towards the east. And the east is considered to be Eretz Yisrael, like we daven towards the Mizrach. And this movement was founded by a person by the name of Rabbi Reines, Rabbi Yitzchak Yaakov Reines. Rabbi Reines, R-E-I-N-E-S, was a rabbi in the Lithuanian town of Lida, L-I-D-A. And he was had a vision of his own, which many other Gedolei Yisrael did not accept. The first manifestation of this vision was in founding the first yeshiva in the world, first post-high school yeshiva, which incorporated secular studies in its curriculum. Until then, there had been no such entity, and since then, there have been very few such entities, because most yeshivas nowadays, which allow secular studies in their programs, allow students to go attend colleges outside of their campus and their classes. And there are very few, such as Yeshiva University and Touro College, which incorporate the secular studies in their program. There's very few, Mechol Lev and Yerushalayim, but they're very few. And he called Yeshiva Torah V'Das. What does Torah V'das mean? Torah is Torah. Das means wisdom, secular wisdom in this case. It was a combination of Torah V'das, was a combination of Torah learning and secular knowledge as well. Torah learning primarily in the morning, as we have it in the format today in most of our schools, and secular learning in the afternoons. Again, it's the format we have it today. Now, I'm going to go off in a historical tangent here, which to me is fascinating, but to you might be totally boring. But nevertheless, listen, and maybe you don't have to write it down. There's a yeshiva in Brooklyn, very famous yeshiva, called Torah V'das. It has no secular studies in its base medrash department, in its post-high school department. It allows college, but it doesn't have any secular studies on campus for its post-high school section. Why is it called Torah V'das? Because the founder of Torah V'das was a Rabbi Wolf Gold, who was one of the leaders of the Mizrahi movement in the early 1900s in America. And he learned in Lida under Rabbi Reines in this Torah V'das yeshiva. So therefore, when he came to found the yeshiva in America, he decided he's going to call it by the name of his yeshiva in Lida in Lithuania, Torah V'das. This caused a great problem for Yeshiva University many years later, because in 1946, the Yeshiva University, which had until then been Yeshiva College, incorporated as a university, and it needed a slogan for its brand. And the most natural slogan, which they could have taken, was Torah V'das. In fact, the first major Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva University was the Meitzer Ilui, Reb Shlomo Polachek. Shlomo Polachek was the Rosh Yeshiva from 1922 to 1928, when they were allowed to take secular studies, but still did not have secular studies on campus. Shlomo Polachek died young in 1928, but before he came to America, had been the Rosh Yeshiva in Torah V'das in Lida in Lithuania. So it was a perfect continuation, and it would have been wonderful for if Yeshiva University could then adopt the slogan Torah V'das. The problem was, though, it was already taken. So therefore, they had to adopt a different slogan, which perhaps someday we'll discuss, called Torah Umada, which has caused all sorts of difficulties since that time because nobody knows exactly what the word Mada means in this context. In other contexts, the word Mada means science, but here it's a substitute for Das, and therefore the question is what exactly it represents. But that's neither here nor there for now. Let's get back to Rabbi Reines. So Rabbi Reines was confronted with this issue of the Zionist movement having rejected Torah as the basis for being Jewish. So what is he supposed to do with this movement, which he feels is a positive development on the Jewish scene? So he founded this movement called the Mizrahi. And the Mizrahi is a movement which believes that although the Zionists are not doing the right thing at the moment, in terms of their severing Judaism from nationhood, nevertheless, they have a positive goal, and we should work with them and try and make the movement as warm and as welcoming and as accommodating for Orthodox Jews as possible. Someday, perhaps, we'll take over the movement in the far future. But in the meantime, said Rabbi Reines, let us cooperate with them because we have common goals. And this goes back to an earlier period in Eastern European Jewish history where there was a movement called the Chovevei Tzion before the mass Zionist movement. And the Chovevei Tzion, many of them were great religious figures in the yeshivas and in the cities of Eastern Europe. Names which will come up in this context, which are not important for us to write down at the moment, are Tzvi Hirsch Kalischer, Rabbi Yehuda Alkalai, and there's one name I'm missing. It's on my tongue before, and I'm missing it at the moment. Rabbi Molever, and perhaps most important of all was the Netziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. Write him down. I know these index cards are the best way to do this, but the Netziv is a acronym, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. Netziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. And the Netziv was one of the great Rosh Yeshiva of, perhaps the greatest Rosh Yeshiva of the 19th century, the greatest yeshiva of the 19th century, Volozhin, and he was a very big supporter of the movement to to go back there, to start a new community of settlers, Orthodox Jewish settlers in Eretz Yisrael. And there were several movements of that sort during the 19th century, which began gradually establishing various different settlements, which most of them still exist and became big cities today in Eretz Yisrael. And so there was already this drive to go to Eretz Yisrael, but it had been preceded the Zionist movement. And now the question was whether to cooperate with the Zionist movement. And the Mizrahi decided we're going to cooperate. We're going to work together with them. And we're going to try and associate with them, and we're going to form this new concept, although I'm not sure they defined it as such at the time, religious Zionist. In other words, a person who has religion as the basis of their identity and also has Zionism as the basis of their identity because they believe that they can work together and be movements which complement, meaning they each help each other out. That was one response of Eastern Orthodox Jewry to the new Western Orthodox Zionism. Now, I should say that there was a secular response as well, which we'll come to perhaps in, next time. But in the meantime, the other response began in Germany. And in Germany it began because of Auschwitzgemeinde. And I know that I didn't use index cards last week, even though I gave you that word. So now we're going to spell it here because it's a cool word. And German is a cool language because it has these long and wacky words. It's really one word, but I divided into it because it's big. Austritz, Austritts, Gemeinde, Gemeinde. So remember, Sham Shmuel Hirsch said we can't. Torah Derech Eretz tells us we cannot participate with the general community in calling ourselves part and parcel of that type of Jewish community, which is not based on Torah, true Judaism, but Reform, conservative, whatever. So too here, but the response to Zionism among the Torah Derech Eretz circles was hostile, because if you took upon yourself the Mizrahi's position, you were accepting to work with a banner of Judaism that was not really Torah. You were underneath that banner and in that camp. So the Torah Derech Eretz people were intolerant of Zionism and the idea of participating and assisting Zionism and being part of the movement in any way, shape, or form. And they reached out to their brethren in Eastern Europe. And the two great Gedolim who initially were a part of this, there were more, of course, but were Reb Shlomo Breuer, who was the son-in-law of Reb Sham Shmuel Hirsch, and Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, famous Reb Chaim of Brisk. And they got together at the house of third Gadol, Yitzchak Isaac Halevi, and they decided we're going to found a new movement. A new movement eventually became known as Agudas Yisrael. And we're running out of time for today. Here's the names: Reb Shlomo Breuer, Breuer, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Soloveitchik. Reb Shlomo Breuer was German, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik was Lithuanian, from the town of Brisk, the city of Brisk. Which we said mentioned his English name is second name is Brest-Litovsk. So they came together and decided to found this movement called the Agudas Yisrael, and the Agudists became the counterpoint in Orthodox Judaism to the Mizrachniks, and we're going to learn more about them next time we get together. They actually were the Agudists were supposed to have their first major convention in 1914. Just when the war broke out. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I look forward to seeing your notes.